career.
Oh my goodness, this is such an honor and such a pleasure to be able to talk with you this morning. I appreciate you so much for fitting me into your schedule. And
Of course. Anything for Xavier Wright. You gotta, when Xavier Wright's call, you gotta fit it in, figure out how to make it happen.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
This is how it works.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump right in and get started because I'm sure your schedule is jam-packed.
It's the end of the semester. You know how that is.
Yes,
it's
I do. Okay, why don't you tell us about yourself and what prompted you to choose counseling as a career?
So I am a native of New Orleans, so born and raised. I stayed in Treme and then moved to the West Bank. So I was a river rat for a really long time. Went to John Ehret. For those who are in New Orleans, they want to know what school you went to, and as high school, not college. So
exactly.
John Ehret, high school. And then went to Xavier because I wanted to go to HBCU. I come from a long line of HBCU graduates. So my mom graduated from Tuskegee. I have an aunt that graduated from Fisk. My brother graduated from Howard. I have another brother that graduated from Fisk. Another one that went to graduated from Xavier. So it's in there. So it was destined for me to actually go to HBCU. My mom's a teacher, so she said education. She's retired now, but education was the thing. So of course, and counseling, I always knew I wanted to do mental health, something in mental health. My major in undergraduate was psychology with a minor in sociology, so destined to do it. I just didn't like what I was hearing in the clinical, like I was taking my clinical, like the abnormal psych class and the diagnosis class in undergrad. And I was like, there must be something else. Like everybody can't be diagnosed and that's it. There has to be something else. Right. So I was on that search, but the people that I had in my path at that time, it was either clinical psych or counseling psych. So I was gonna take a break to apply, take a year break, and then wound up wandering through the Xavier University's graduate halls and found Dr. Cerisi West Olatunji in her office and was saying, hey, so I think I wanna do this. And she was like, that is so cute that you think you want to be a clinical psychologist person. And was like, hey, try this counseling psychology thing on and see how you like it. I'm sure you're going to love it, kind of thing. And so I was like, sure, I'll do this for a year while I do my applications. And just fell in love with it with the first class because she was so passionate and it's like, wow, if I could do a 10th of this, I'm here, right? So that's literally, I knew I was going to do mental health. I just didn't know what part of mental health. I knew I didn't want to diagnose in the sense of giving drugs, because I wanted to work with kids. So I was like, I don't really like that combo. So let me figure something else out. And that's just how I was like, this is what I've been looking for. There has to be a continuum. Everybody can't be in this thing where you have to, there has to be a continuum of sorts. Everybody can't be not in this continuum. So that's why counseling really fit me, because it was like, oh, so we're just getting you to your optimum level, right? And we're giving you interventions. I love that part. That is what I was looking for. So I guess we found each other. That's the best way to say it. We found each other.
Right. You kind of fell into each other. Yes.
Yeah.
So you currently work in clinical rehab and counseling at LSU.
Yeah.
What population do you primarily serve? That is so interesting.
So I actually do a lot of trainings and in-services for people trying to learn how to work with families, work with kids. Really the culture-centered piece is something that I'm so passionate about. So it's trying to figure out how to do culture-centered interventions that are correct culture-centered interventions, making sure that people are culturally competent, making sure you're talking to parents culturally competent
Oh,
wise, making sure you're coming up with these interventions that make sense, that a lot for the child's culture, and that you're not being just so monochromatic in the sense that it's only like race that we're talking about
right.
with culture. So I definitely talk about, if you're going to have a kid from New Orleans, there needs to be some key pieces in your playroom because that kid has a specific culture, and know that the kid from Chalmette is not the kid from New Orleans.
Exactly.
And know that, and let's figure out how to do that, and talk to those parents, because that parent from Chalmette is not the parent from New Orleans. And just because they from New Orleans don't mean the parent from Treme is not the parent from Gentilly. You have to, you got to ask some questions. Yes, ask some questions different. Know some of the slang that the parents are saying, the kids are saying, so that you know that there's not an issue. It's just they're talking to you in a different way, or maybe there is an issue, but you need to know that. We need to dig deeper and figure that out. So that's really what I do as far as the clinic wide stuff. And then just teaching, as an associate professor, I teach classes. So it's internship, and practicum, and career, and multicultural, and theories. So a lot of that, get our clinicians, our future clinicians out there and being confident. So right now I'm gearing up to teach the advanced multicultural course. So we'll see how that goes in the spring. This will be the third time I've taught it. So they seem to like it, but we'll see what happens.
How did the pandemic impact your work as a counselor?
Oh my goodness. So the pandemic, again, did not expect it. I literally, so I remember the pandemic more than most because my birthday is actually March 16th. So I remember going to Orange Theory on my birthday saying, oh my goodness, let me get this workout in and do this stuff. And then we're gonna go to the parade for the St. Patty's Day parade, because me and my family love to do, that's the thing for my birthday. We know we're going to the St. Patty's Day parade. And that's when we got shut down, and it was like, what? And then, when we shut down, it was like, okay, so you have to shut it down. It was no one thought nearly that we would be here.
No.
So I think the biggest thing that I have gotten into is just doing a lot more self-care, putting a lot more boundaries out there, imparting that to my students. Like, you need some self-care. This right here, you can't keep going and not do self-care. And I've gotten into really exercising. I was already exercising and that sort of thing, but it's even more important now that I exercise at least 3 or 4 times a week. Otherwise, I'm off with this pandemic thing. And I think the other thing is staying off the computer, because Zoom fatigue is a real thing. So like, really, if we're gonna have a meeting, it has to be something that makes sense, and we have to hit all of the cylinders that we're trying to do, and that we are not on there just for the sake of being on there. I think I try to do that with teaching class. I make sure I have some breaks in there, because they get a little punchy and they're not answering the questions. Like, I'm asking questions and they're looking distant. I'm like, okay, so it's time for us to take a break. Let's do that. Come back. And I think it's also changed my teaching, because now, because we're on the Zoom platform, I'm doing breakout rooms and really allowing them to kind of talk to each other in a different way. And I think it's made the class a lot better. I was telling one of my colleagues that they loved career, and career was like the class they hated when they were doing it in person. And now we have it on Zoom, and they're like, I really like this class. And I was like, I may have some converts. I don't know. Because, career is that class that they're like, really? How does it relate? What do we do with this one? I don't really know. So I make it more of, so how did you come to counseling? What was the thing that really drew you here? So this is the thing that we want to, like, are you playing happenstance? Let's do Holland and see if you come up with the personality traits that would fit into that. So I think taking it from that perspective with them, and then allowing them to do tests, like they, do some online tests, free tests on themselves so that they can really see how it works and that sort of thing. So it's really improved all my teaching, I would say that. I mean, multicultural is a lot easier to teach because now you don't have to say it in a big forum. You can get into your small breakout groups and talk about the multicultural thing that we're talking about, the current event or the film I've assigned, and then you can just give me a summary. So if something happened in a group, even though I go in and listen to the groups, but normally they're like, oh, Dr. Frazier's here, we're gonna sound really important right now. But the idea is that it gives them a little more autonomy, and I think they enjoy the class a lot more. So I would say the pandemic in general, you had to adjust and really focus in on wellness. But then I think it really forced a lot of us who were teaching to really get kind of creative. And it's either you either love Zoom or you don't like Zoom. There's really no in between with it. So I love it. I think it's improved my teaching a lot.
Do you think that the way that counseling and teaching has changed because of the pandemic, do you think it's going to continue?
I think it has to.
Yes.
I really think it has to, because I think that, I mean, even though our students go back and forth, like one moment they're like, hey, I really like that we're online and we're on the Zoom platform. And then they're like, hey, it would be great if we could meet in person. And so it's just like, we need to figure this thing out, guys. Like, what are we doing? What do we really want? So I think that it is going to force us to be in a hybrid kind of situation. I mean, with telehealth, being what it is, I just don't, it's not going back in the box. It's like, hey, you got it out here, let's do it. So I think that it also kind of forces us, this is what I was telling students, it was nothing like doing your practicum and internship class and have students that were in person and then they had to do it telehealth. And it was like, okay, so we need to work on our facial expressions. Because some of this it's not translating well towards the client. I'm not sure if you, like, let's just pause this so you can see this is your face right now. What do you think the client was thinking in that moment as they looked back? And it was one of those things that they were like, I didn't know. So I think it's really gonna, like when we're doing techniques, we really have to add a telehealth piece in there to have them do some stuff online so that you can kind of see what are some of your verbals and nonverbals and how is it coming across. Because I tell them all the time, you really have to you have to exaggerate your own personality when you're on Zoom or any online platform, because it won't come across if you're just, on your regular level. You really have to boost it up.
And you have to spruce it up. You have to make it more interesting from the very beginning, or you're going to lose
people.
Or
you'll lose them. I said, just like y'all get lost in the class because y'all are like, we didn't have a break. You don't feel, engaged with the client is thinking the same thing. So you need to figure this thing out so they can be engaged and feel like you're there. A lot of times it's hard to, with a lot of people struggle with in telehealth, it's hard to do the connect or feel the connect with the client. So I said, yeah, you have to work a lot harder. I will definitely say that. You do have to work a lot harder.
You do, especially like you said with the connect, because you don't want to come across as just being too, like, not in the moment, not present. I got other things going on. I'm listening, but you're over here. So you definitely have issues. You were recently elected president of the American Counseling Association. Yay! That is so huge.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yes. That is so huge. That's a really, really big deal. To be able to look at you and see myself.
Right.
It's just amazing for so many people all across the board. So kudos to you. You're a Xavier alumni of the counseling department. We're just thrilled. And so I would like to know, what is at the top of your agenda for July 1, 2022?
There's so much at the top of my agenda. As a matter of fact, the CEO, Rich Jepp, is telling me, Kim, seriously, we have to, there's a year in this. So there's so much at the top of my agenda. One, I want to say it is so humbling and overwhelming in a lot of ways to have people email and want to talking to me and that sort of thing, and realizing that people are going to see themselves reflected back, but to actually meet those people and to see them and to see Xavier and to know that I mean, some people are just like, to know I walked the halls, the same halls you walked. I was like, yeah, and sat in some of the very same seats.
Yeah.
So that is very humbling in itself to be able to be that person, because I had so many people like that for me. So to be now that symbol is wow. You know, it's just wow. I remember I was talking to my brother 2 weeks ago, and I said, wow, we've just really come a long way. Like, never thought sitting at Xavier University and going to class and, you know, on the benches and doing the patio shows and that sort of thing. And to now do this is crazy. So yes, the top of my agenda, there's so much. Of course, I'm going to do what I always do, which is what I'm always passionate about, which is anti-racism, mentoring of graduate students and new professionals, and also wellness, because we need that after this 2 years of the pandemic and just the social justice unrest and all the things that are happening. So those are the key things that I will be focusing on. My hope is to do a mentoring summit of some sort so that we can get some best practices out there and get people connected, because a lot of people are like, how do you find your mentor? I mean, how did that happen? Is it organic? Is it, they have so many questions, and how do you know you have a good mentor? So my goal is to set something like that up. It may not be a large thing, but at least focus on that. The other thing is helping students and new professionals navigate not only graduate school, but job searches and that sort of thing. So how do you do that? So my hope is that I can have some students and new professionals talk about what are their best practice tips to like navigate school and navigate this job market. And then have people talk about their wellness tips. Like, what's your wellness? What do you do for wellness? How do you do self-care? We talk about it all the time. My students say, you guys talk about it all the time, but what does it look like? So, I mean, and this is really born out of, I actually created a class that we talk about, like, how do you do self-care wellness? How do you organize yourself? How do you get through the last year? Basically, that class is focused on, you have one more year left. How do you get through it, and how we're going to do that? And then, of course, anti-racism, we have to put a focus on that. That can't be put to bed. That's not where we are. We have momentum. We need to keep going with it. We need to do a spotlight on people who are doing research that is focused on that. My hope is to put a spotlight on those people, put a spotlight on those who are doing the work of that. So the clinicians that are out there in the communities doing the work of multiculturalism and anti-racism, maybe doing some grants or something where you're giving grants out to people who are doing that and just in there. Because for me, it's very, very important to just do the work. Right. So many people focus on, hey, you know, Dr. Frazier or Kim, how'd you get in this path? And I was just like, I just did the work. It wasn't, I just kept doing the work, and people kept going, hey, why don't you do this? Hey, why don't you do that? I really like what you're saying. I really like what you're doing. Let's have that go. But the idea is that do the work, continue to do the work. Don't lose sight of what's important. Don't lose sight of the determination. Yes, there'll be obstacles. There was a bunch of obstacles in my way, but it was determination and having enough people that were making, you know, small roads for me so that I could get there. So that's what I want people to not think about. I was talking to the current president of the American Counseling Association, Dr. Kent Butler. He's a good friend of mine. And I was saying, everybody looks at like the outcome. So they're looking at you like, this is the outcome. How did you get to the outcome? And they don't know the journey. And my thing is, you really have to focus on the journey. Like, what did you do for the journey? How did you touch people? How did you, you know, inspire people? How did you, like, what did you leave behind? And what work did you do? You know, you want to be able to say, hey, I did that. And I at least left a building block for someone else to continue to build, because that's the expectation. It's not that you continue to look at my monument, that the monument continues to be built on top of something that you've already done. So just do the work.
Do the work. I think I'm going to put that up on the wall somewhere in the school. Do the work, Dr.
Just do the work. And that, I mean, when I say do the work, it's the training that you need to become a
Yeah.
better clinician. It's what are you doing out in the community so you feel fulfilled with the community. Because a lot of people are saying, hey, I just don't feel fulfilled anymore. I feel like I'm doing this, but I don't feel fulfilled with that. And it's like, what could you do? Like what little bit of time that you have? Because I was talking to students, right? What little bit of time do you have that you can feel satisfied in a different way? Because you may not be getting that in your program. You may not be getting that because we're asking you to do some serious like study and do class and that sort of thing. But you can do something really small. It's like when you talk about advocacy, right? So people think, oh, I can't be an advocate. It's like we need advocates on all levels. So you don't have to do this huge advocacy project. You can be, doing this small ripple. The small ripple, if we have a bunch of people doing the small ripples, eventually it becomes this big thing. We still need you to do that. We need people on all levels doing stuff is really what it is. And I hope that I impart that to my students. I hope that I impart that to my mentees of do the work and figure out what makes you happy, right? What makes you happy? What do you really want to do? I just had this conversation with one of my students. They were like, well, how do you do it with all this stuff? And we're talking about microaggressions and that sort of thing. It's just, I feel so overwhelmed, or I feel it's heavy. And I said, you still have to go forward. It's always going to be, I still get microaggressions just like you get microaggressions, but I still have to do the work. I still have to be out there because somebody has to be the voice. So if you're too tired to be the voice, then how are we going to get it going? We need you. We need more people out there doing it.
And it's important that you say you have to do what you love. You have to do what you're passionate about, because if not, it comes across in so many ways. It
Absolutely.
So many ways, so many people, your clients, your students, everyone can see that you're not really there. So it's so important that you're happy with what you do.
Doing what you love and
Yes.
then being authentic, right? So that's the other thing that we talk about, because I said, you could turn yourself into a pretzel based on what people think you should be doing, right? So the idea is that you have to be who you are, because eventually whoever you are is going to come out. So you have to be okay with that and accept that consequence of this is just who I am. And the people who love you will love you as you are. The people who weren't on your team for the right reasons are going to want you to turn yourself into the pretzel. But understand there's a consequence to that. That's the other thing that I tell people. It's a consequence to being yourself, because somebody is not going to like who you are, right? But the idea is, if you are, congruent and staying in your truth, it won't matter to you. It will matter to the person, but it won't matter to you.
Not to you. And the work has to continue. The work continues. It's a constant. It's a constant. How did Xavier prepare you to work as a counselor? And what is your biggest takeaway from Xavier? From the school?
Oh my goodness, there's so many. I mean, Xavier it was such a learning ground. You're winning. I mean, it's just what I tell people who are like, well, PWI or HBCU. And I'm like, again, I'm biased, of course.
Yes.
And I said, it's nothing like seeing a bunch of people who are just as smart as you, coming from all these walks of life. It's like seeing yourself reflected back in all these different people.
Anyway.
And you are making these connections, and the connections last forever. Like, it's like a family reunion when you see these people.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to put it.
So Xavier just taught me one, not that my mother didn't teach me these things too, but Xavier just reinforced, be yourself and be excited and curious about things, and thinking about, like when you hear no. So I was just having this conversation with one of my colleagues. I was like, when I hear no, I think, so you're saying no to this, but how do I get you to say yes? Like, what part are you saying yes to, and how can I do that more so that you will eventually say yes? I even had a provost, not a provost, one of my college deans, when I was working at one of the universities, said, I don't think you've ever heard the word no a lot. I was like, or no, I have, but I just think that we can negotiate something different to make it where we're both happy. So how do we do that is really what I'm looking at. So
What part are you saying no to, and how can I
what
get
part are you saying no to? That's really what part are you saying no to?
Yeah.
So, and I use my counseling skills in that sense, because I'll ask like a bunch of questions to figure that out. So what I would say Xavier also taught me is to be determined and tenacious. Like it's not, just because you heard no doesn't mean it's a solid no. It means,
Part of that did you say no to?
right, you keep going. You just keep going, or figuring out a way around, just because that person told you no, how can you figure out a way to still get the needs met, even if that doesn't work in that particular venue? How can it work in another venue, kind of thing? And that was really Xavier, being out there, being with the sorority, and being in we were definitely out there with, I mean, everybody, because it wasn't just, it was all the Greeks, everybody on campus. It was like, so what are we doing today? Like,
Right.
how are we going to get this done? Okay, so everybody, this is your job. Okay, unite, let's do it. So I also think Xavier taught me how to be a good delegator. And how to really motivate people. Because I mean, we were always motivated by some issue, something coming up that you were like, okay, so now we're going to do this, right? And I always find it kind of funny, because when I was working at my PWIs, the students would be outraged about stuff, and I was like, so why aren't you doing anything about it? Like, and they were like, what do you mean? I was like, at Xavier, we had protests all the time about just,
Yes.
why don't we have red beans and rice and then fried chicken more than one day? I mean, it was just, it was just stuff like, just stuff that or I remember when I was there in St. Mike's, they were protesting because they didn't like the conditions led by a couple of my friends. But it was just like, it was like, raise your voice. Exactly. That's the other thing. Xavier really taught me, raise your voice, and use your voice in a way that is educated, that shows people that you know the issue, and that not only are you sitting at the table, because it's not enough to sit at the table. You have to be able to use your voice at the table and talk very well-versed in the issue that you're sitting at the table for. So I would say that Xavier made me unafraid to sit at the table and unafraid to use your voice, and be okay when people were like, well, I don't know if I would come at it like that. And it was like, I'm using my voice this way. You can use your voice a different way, kind of thing. So I'm so thankful for Xavier with that. And just because it was so many people that were using their voice for so many different things. Yes. So it was, infectious. It was like, okay, so you're using your voice for this, so how can I do this and how can I do that? So yeah, Xavier really played a role in that, and just knowing that you're not just carrying yourself out in the community, you're carrying everybody out in the community with you. So you are a symbol and an example of what Xavier produces, so that people know, okay, when you say Xavier, they go Xavier University of New Orleans, that sort of thing. And you're like, yes, absolutely. That is it. And when you have the attitude, when you're like, it's Xavier of New Orleans, I don't know what you're talking about. When I thought we knew, I thought it was understood when I said Xavier, we were talking about Louisiana and New Orleans kind of thing. Yeah, because people in counseling are like, she goes hard for Xavier. She goes hard for Xavier in the HBCUs. I'm like, yep, I sure do.
Yes. Okay, lastly, what advice do you have for students considering counseling as a career choice?
Oh my goodness. Think about why you want to be a counselor, right? So that you're not trying to figure out your own stuff, that you're really trying to help other people, and that it's not a missionary stance of help. You really want to meet people where they are, and not tell people where they should be. So definitely thinking about, if you want to be a helper, right? Because we talk about this, I want to be a helper. So why do you want to be a helper? What is your expectation of helping? And can you be okay if your client doesn't really take what you say? If they say, I don't want to do that, are you all right with that? Because the idea is you're meeting them where they are. So if they don't want to do that, that has nothing to do with me. okay, what do you want to do? How can we come up with a plan for you to do what you want to do? So I would tell people, definitely, if you feel like you want to be a helper, really investigate, why do you want to be a helper? And the idea is being okay with not having people necessarily take what like you may have an idea of what you think they should do, but they're always going to do what they want to do. And you have to be okay with that part and meeting them where they are, right? Because a lot of people are like, yes, I want to be a helper. And then you're like, but they don't want to do that. So.
Yes, you have to meet people where they are.
Right. And they're like, but it could be so. I said, I know you have a whole intervention, a whole plan if they did, but they're not going to do that. So what's your plan now that they're not going to do it? Kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I think that counseling can't go forward unless you have new blood in it and people who can see the world in a different way and talk about it in such a way that you can, like, other people can see it in that tone too. You need a lot of voices at the table in order to transform something. So my hope is that I can inspire and other people to come into the profession and come and transform it some more. We can't stay where we are. We have to constantly evolve because our clients are constantly evolving.
Exactly. I do have one question I'm just thinking of.
Yes.
With the ACA, are there any issues that you feel need to be brought to the forefront that maybe have been through the years, not so much shoved under the rug, but just something that needs to be brought to the forefront with the world as it's evolving and changing?
I know that some of the people in the counseling profession feel like we shouldn't get involved in social justice issues. And I'm not in that camp. I think we definitely need to get involved in social justice issues because that means that you don't see your clients, you don't see other counselors, you don't see other helping professionals if you're not looking at the social justice issues. To me, it's as important as you saying that you don't see color when you say don't get involved in social justice issues. You have to get involved in social justice issues. How can we ask our clients to advocate for themselves if we're not doing the advocacy work on our own too for the social justice issues? And if you don't do, like, if you're not involved in social justice issues, are you just going to tell the people who are a part of the organization that are impacted by that, sorry?
Right.
So I would definitely say getting involved in the social justice issues that are impacting us definitely is something that we need to get, all of those social justice issues. I also think that we just need to focus on this portability thing. I don't know how the portability thing is going to happen, but figuring out how to get portability. I mean, even it probably won't happen in my year at all. But the idea is that we need to definitely focus in and figure out how to make it happen so that it's not something that we're still talking about. Because I mean, they were talking about that when I was a student, and now I'm not a student. I'm teaching students, and we're still talking about it. So I would say that's the two things. I would say social justice issues, you need to, again, use your voice, be loud and proud. With your voice in that, and then portability. What can we do? And we are working on that. Like ACA is working on portability. They've been working on portability. I know that ACA does talk about social justice issues and lends its voice to that. I think we just need to continue those parts so that we're allowing other people to continue to see themselves reflected back.
And do the work.
And do the work.
Do the work.
That is it. That is it. Do the work.
Well, Dr. Frazier, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to sit down and I appreciate you so much. The audience will appreciate you so much.
I hope so.
Yes, I have taken away so much just from this time that we've sat down and talked, and I feel so inspired by you. I can see you're a beautiful person, definitely on the outside and on the inside as well. And
thank you.
Just to be able to look at you and to see myself and the possibilities are absolutely, it's just so inspiring and amazing. And I can't thank you enough.
I can't thank you enough. I mean, the idea of having a Xavier want to interview you, it never, I mean, because I have other people who were in my class of 90, I'm old, so my undergraduate class is class of 98, that are doing major stuff. So I was like, what? Not that this isn't major, but I mean, like, so it's not that this isn't major. It's just like, oh, of
Yeah.
course I want to be interviewed and that sort of thing. So of course, I mean, whatever I can do, I definitely want to get back to Xavier. That's the start. That's the place that planted the seed.
Okay.
Everything else is the other parts, but
And
this
we
is
are
the place.
so proud of you. We are so proud
Oh,
of you. So
thank
keep up
you
that.
so much.
We pray for you every day.
I
We are
need all the
here if you
prayers.
need us, and I'm going to keep in touch with you. And
Definitely keep in touch.
and if there's anything that we can do, please feel free to reach out. And I hope that we'll have an opportunity to talk again soon.
I'm sure we will. I can't wait.
Yeah.
But definitely keep in touch.
I definitely will. Thank you so much. And please have a wonderful holiday season.
You too, definitely.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Frazier.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.